Well, speaking of loyalty, we all know that Tim Russert grew up in South Buffalo, working class family. He wrote about it with Big Russ and Me, and even though he rose to the heights of being one of the most important journalists in America, a guy who could drive the political debate in this country, had all the good fortune that goes with the success that he had, he never forgot his Buffalo roots. This is the Buffalo News. I think it's mute testimony to how they felt about him in his hometown. And we thought we would share with you just a few of the hundreds of thousands of references to Buffalo and everything connected to Buffalo that we heard on this broadcast.
For Big Russ, his buddies back in Buffalo who helped make this country great, for the city of Buffalo, and for all the underdogs in this country and around the world, go you Buffalo Bills. Go Sabres. Bring it home. We want the cup. How about those Boston College Eagles on to the Sweet 16? Go Eagles. Go Bills. Get those skins. Sorry about those Bills, but how about those Sabres? St. Albans Bulldogs 25, the Gonzaga Eagles 20. Yesterday, God was not purple. He was wearing Bulldog blue. And hey, Buffalo Sabres, nice job. 10 in a row. Make me proud. Go Bills. Squish the fish. Hold the emails. I know dolphins are mammals, but, you know, squish the fish. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press, and oh, yes, go Bills.
You know, Tom.
He was beyond shameless about this.
But he loved it. I'm telling you, Saturday night, I'm watching the LSU football game. And they'd score a touchdown, 10:30. I look on myself, there he is. He said, can you believe LSU just scored? I'm so happy for you. And I felt like, man, you got to go to sleep. You got to do the show tomorrow. If you were pulling for a team and you were a friend of his, he'd be pulling for the team. You know everybody.
Right.
He said, Jacob has to...
Thursday night, I'm in New York. The Celtics-Lakers game is going on out on the coast. The Celtics, phenomenal comeback. I'm trying to fall asleep in a hotel room. Phone rings. You know, hey, buddy, you see what's going on out there? You see the run they're putting on?
He just... And that was, when I talk about that kind of little boy, he had enthusiasm for the Bills, but if you had a team, he followed his friends' teams. And I'm in Tiger Stadium, Jacob Haskell makes a first down, and my phone rings in the middle of 92,000 people.
I love Buffalo that even at one point when he asked me, what are you going to do after Lincoln? I said, what can I do anything after Lincoln? I certainly can't go back to Millard Fillmore. And he said, no, wait, Millard Fillmore came from Buffalo. Don't say bad things about Millard Fillmore.
You know, that's how I got hired here. The real reason I got my job at NBC is because I had lived for 4 formative years in Buffalo, New York. To heck with my journalism.
My best experience with him in the whole Buffalo Bills thing is that he invoked God at the end of Meet the Press when the Bills were playing the Cowboys in the Super Bowl in Pasadena. And he said something to the effect that if there is a God in heaven, the Bills will win it. And I went to him and I said, look, I think you crossed the line. And he said, no, I feel strongly about that. You know, I'm urging everybody to pray. And he said, I've invoked the entire Catholic Church trying to get the Bills across the line. And so we go to the game. And of course, the Bills get completely blown out of the Rose Bowl by Dallas. And Tim was walking dejectedly with Luke at his side. It was about 10 at the time over the NBC party. And I went to Tim and I said, you know what this proves? And he said, what? I said, God is a Baptist. And to Tim's credit, he told that story wherever he appeared.
You could never mention Scott Norwood around Tim.
Oh.
No.
Wide right in the Super Bowl. Bills lose to the New York Giants. Field goal kicker.
Well, you know, the other thing is that he's what they call in the sports business a homer. I mean, he was for the home team. He was for your team because it was the home team. It was for when Luke goes to Boston College, it becomes the greatest institution in American life, and the Eagles got more possible attention than they could have imagined. Can we just share something else? Tim had a 50th birthday 8 years ago. And this is a distinguished American historian in a way that you have never, ever seen her before. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Doris Kearns, va-va-voom.
Jeff, you're going to see this on Imus. I love this on
Did you sing?
I had to sing. You know how Marilyn Monroe sung, Happy Birthday, Mr. President? So I had to sing, Happy Birthday, Mr. Moderator. Oh, God. No. It was the most embarrassing moment. I thought I'll never be able to do it. And sometimes you put that stupid thing around your neck and you have a wig on, you become another person, at least for a few moments.
And, you know, we had I think of Meet the Press as a series show. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
Well, what I loved was I loved the postmortems.
Yeah.
Tim would do the show. I'd be sitting there, and we'd be on the back and forth, back and forth. We would be talking about who did well, you know, what their weaknesses were. This one's got a chance to go. I remember a candidate whose name I will not use here came waltzing in here one day and crawled out the door. I mean, he thought he was going to be the next president of the United States. The next time he came, he was in much better shape.
He was, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And Tim was proud of Tim was proud of the guy that he came, again. He just asked. And political consultants do this. When you have a candidate goes on a show, you try to predict the questions. You could predict the questions the highest on Meet the Press because they were fair questions. Right. But he really was offended by people who didn't prepare. And he was glad that the candidate did much better. He was almost.
Well, the fact is, I believe he made all the candidates, just as I believe this long primary seasons made all the candidates better. I think Tim made the candidates better. I think he has elevated the process in a lot of ways.
He made journalists better, too. I mean, one of the other postmortems that happened was around this table after every program where we sat around and not only decompressed about what had happened on the program, but often what had happened in our reporting. I learned more things, some of them reportable, some of them not, around this table, because that was part of the ritual. Part of the ritual was, what do you know? What do you know? That's what Tim would always say to you. And often people, sometimes guests would come out and join us, and those were sometimes the most fascinating conversations I had all week.
You know what, Tom, we talk about his ambition and his friendships and his loyalty. He was ambitious for his friends. I'm struck by all of the colleagues. Everyone is just so, he was ambitious for the interns. He's ambitious for his friends. If you had a book, he'd put you on one of his shows. He tried to help everybody. He wanted everybody to do their best. Another unique thing about this town, which is can be zero-sum. If you're up, somebody else has to be. He enjoyed everybody's success, and he pulled for everybody's success, and he put them in positions to succeed, starting with the interns. And after the show, after the postmortem, he would not sit down to have the little turkey sandwiches and stuff till he got with everybody who came, and they're all journalism students, and he'd keep up with them, and he'd put them in positions to succeed.
And he would always, he always said this, he always said the best exercise for the human heart was to bend down and pick someone else up. And he not only picked us up, but he held us up every week, and as the backbone of the show.
Well, and Mike and I have talked about this a lot because we've shared so many common roots. I think it's really a testimony to his working class background and to this country. He would always say, I hope I can get through this. What a great country this is.
What a country. What a country.
Right.
I mean, his working class roots, it's such almost, everyone says it, you know, don't forget where you came from, and he never forgot where he came from. But where Timmy came from, in addition to South Buffalo, was much more than that. Yeah. He had a missionary's zeal about him for people, for everyone, for lifting people up, for helping people in times of trouble, whether you were his friend or whether you were a complete stranger. And I know you could do the same thing. I can't begin to tell you the numbers of people who he knew who had a child who might be damaged in one way or another. And Tim would always call and ask to speak to that child who in the house, you know, how are you doing? Julie, how are you doing? Or whoever it was. He had that touch. He just knew that who needed to be lifted up, who needed to be helped. And he was the strongest man. He had the strongest, biggest heart.
And children who are excellent judges of character really loved Tim.
They knew it like that.
They knew it instantly.
Like that.
Yeah. We, in fact, we have a Tim commentary that came the Sunday after 9/11 that I think summarizes that better than any of us are able to. Here's Tim on the consequences of 9/11 and what he saw.
Together, firemen, priests, and brothers wept and sang the prayer of St. Francis. May the Lord bless and keep you and show his face to you and have mercy on you. That is the way of New York. That is the spirit of America. From February 1945 at Iwo Jima to September 2001 at the World Trade Center.
Tim Russert commenting on 9/11